Hi, everyone. I'm Swabha. I am a co-associate director of CAIS, and I am also an assistant professor of computer science. My research area is natural language processing, and today I'll be talking about making sense of sensitive conversations at scale. Just a fair warning, some of the content, especially examples in this talk, might be offensive or disturbing in nature. We all know that our lives are increasingly online. So as a result, we are having a lot of conversations about our society at large online. One of the major topics of conversation online is homelessness, and this is true especially in the recent events. There is an upcoming Supreme Court case on ruling on homelessness versus cities. A lot of the data that we want to collect on public opinion can be found on social media. So scale at which we are dealing with these conversations is very important here. So the question is, how can we make sense of these conversations, these very, very large scale conversations at scale on societal problems such as homelessness? And by make sense of, I mean, how can we characterize and summarize these conversations? If I give you an example of one of these posts from formerly Twitter, now X, and ask you to tell me what you can infer from this or what the implication of this message might be, you might say something along the lines of this message expresses fear and discomfort. The person perhaps felt threatened by the unpredictable behavior, and there is a certain level of fear and prejudice towards people experiencing homelessness, associating them with danger or unpredictability. So while this is a very detailed, nuanced way of looking at this particular conversation, it becomes very challenging to look at millions and millions of such posts on social media and come up with these kinds of implications and summarizing them at scale. This is a project that we did with some of my students as well as students from the School of Social Work, a lot of whom are here in the audience today, where we looked at characterizing these attitudes towards homelessness with the help of large language models. Let's see how we went about doing this. At the very beginning of this process, we looked at a large collection of tweets, and students together with my students together with the social work students worked really hard in developing this coding typology where we classified the tweets into three broad themes corresponding to critiques, perceptions, and responses, which were further subcategorized into 9 different issue-specific frames. Under critiques, we had things like government and societal critique. Under perceptions, we had things like not in my backyard attitudes, or attitudes which compared populations by saying who's deserving or undeserving of care. And along the response, we had solutions and interventions that people were proposing. So these categories that we came up with were also inspired by the Goffman's theory of stigma. To give you an example of what this looks like for a given post, we had something like 9 different issue-specific categories that could be picked, and our annotation process would pick, for instance, these 2 categories: solutions and interventions in government critique, based on our coding typology. Now, using this process, we were able to collect about 4,000 annotations. This is a very, very labor-intensive process. It took 7 or 8 months to come up with these codes, and students worked really, really, really hard sitting together, resolving differences, and so on. In order to do the kind of work that we want to do at scale, this kind of manual labor is just not sustainable. So to give you an alternate pipeline for what this might look like, we took these posts and asked a language model, in this case GPT-4. We did a lot of tricks to make this prompting work or to make this task work, what these different attitudes might be. And for instance, for this tweet, the language model came up with the following categories. And then we had one of our trained experts, as we call them, correct the labels that the language model provided. So this resulted in 4,000 more annotations, but most of all, a big speed up in the annotation process. So again, we are not completely relying on language models to do this task. We are relying on them as assistants that can help us annotate these things at scale. So we took these annotations and we trained a model that can scale this up to even more annotations. So we obtained 2.4 million annotations using our framework. And if you look at how well models versus humans are doing, of course, humans are doing the best. This is a very hard task, so the performance is somewhat low. But with this language model in the loop, we are able to bridge that gap quite a bit. And then we can look at the results. We saw that solutions and interventions, government critique, and harmful generalization are the things that were most salient in our large corpus. And we also saw that government critique is often associated with people asking for money or aid from these organizations for helping people experiencing homelessness. So analyses of these kinds of predictions can allow us to characterize these conversations at scale. There are a couple of analyses which I won't go into in the interest of time, but my student Jaspreet is presenting our poster today, which you can attend and get some more details on what our analysis thought. So along the same lines, I will just give a brief overview of a pilot project that we just started in collaboration with John Blaznik, who might be here maybe, from the School of Social Work, and my student Yunsu, where we looked at similar kinds of conversations, but in this case, we are looking at suicide reports, which were official legal reports. So again, I don't need to stress this. Suicide rates have been going up, and the reports that we consider were the ones that were official reports by law enforcement. And here, the central idea is to look at these reports, and I don't want the audience to look at these reports, but for instance, one salient thing that comes up is custody battles. Someone was going through divorce proceedings or was court-ordered into a rehabilitation center or was facing some financial problems. And these kinds of conversations come up on more than 70% of the reports that we analyzed. And as you can imagine, these reports are extremely hard to go through manually. So we use language models to come up with whether or not there are these interactions with non-clinical professionals, which can help us design better interventions for these suicides by asking these non-clinical professionals to asking for training for these professionals to detect such patterns and behaviors. So as a final slide, I will say that while human abilities where human abilities are limited, we can use these language models to aid the process, and this can greatly ease the psychological burdens on social workers as well as mental health professionals. So thank you. It's also extremely, extremely important to keep in mind the risks of large language models, which I'm happy to talk about as well. So this is my lab. Thank you.